It sounds like he owes you a cleaning bill.
Very good. Welcome to our regular council meeting for January 7, 19. In consideration of those running, please turn off your cell phone or other electronic devices. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Shu?
Here.
Mr. Fitzgerald?
Here.
Mrs. Denalo?
She's in the restroom currently.
She's here.
She's here, yes.
Mrs. Jenkins?
Here.
Mr. Augustine?
Here.
Mr. Fodor?
Present.
Mr. Hack?
Here. I need approval of the agenda.
I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda in accordance with section 6, 3 of the Gainesville City Charter for an executive session to discuss pending or potential litigation involving the city. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Ayes carried. Invocation will be given by Kristen.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any naysayers? All right, the ayes carry. Our agenda, invocation will be given by Christine Shoup, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
Oh, one, you have given us the responsibility of leadership in the affairs of our city. May what we say and do here this night be worthy in your sight and for the benefit of those who have entrusted to us this duty. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we have minutes from our regular meeting from 2/17/18. Katie Jenkins was absent. Can we get a motion to approve those?
I'll make a motion to approve the regular minutes meeting from meeting 12/17/18.
Second.
Roll call.
Mrs. Denalo?
Yes.
Mrs. Jenkins?
Abstain.
Mr. Augustine?
Yes.
Mr. Fodor?
Yes.
Mrs. Shu?
Yes.
Mr. Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Mr. Hack?
Yes, the minutes from 2017, or December 17, 2018 are approved. Now I need a motion for the special meeting we had on December 31st, 18. Tom Fitzgerald was absent. Can I have a motion?
Motion to approve the meetings from the special meeting on 12/31/18.
Second.
Roll call.
Mrs. Shu?
Yep.
Mr. Fitzgerald?
Abstain.
Mrs. Denalo?
Yes.
Mrs. Jenkins?
Yes.
Mr. Augustine?
Yes.
Mr. Fodor?
Yes.
Mr. Hack?
Yes, it's approved. This is the public comment for visitors. If we will recognize our visitors, please raise your hand if you wish to speak. When called upon, please use the podium. Clearly state your name and address into the microphone and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Any dialogue must be conducted through me as president of the council, although your comments and questions will be addressed to the public, to the council, the administration, or both. Who would like to speak? Ray?
Ray Stern on 346 Birchwood, Painesville, Ohio. I just want to compliment the administration for getting out the bid on the proposed software upgrade for the billing system, the personnel system. I think I saw that in the paper that went out today. We need to get rid of the billing system we got in terms of utilities, so that's a great plus. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark? Address?
Mark Wainwright, 115 Van Drive in Painesville. Okay, corner, across the street from Mr. Gurley there.
We don't have that.
Next door to her, I have to behave, generally speaking. I just want to take 2 minutes to invite everybody to the Harvey High School Boosters Reverse Raffle. We've been very successful with this event. It's our #1 fundraiser. Tom's been before, I know. We generate in the neighborhood of $18,000. The last couple of years, we've been able to turn around about $60,000 back into the middle school and high school for the athletics department. Like I said, this is our #1 fundraiser, so I'm going to give these to the secretary. If anybody needs tickets, my phone number and Sean Cypress' phone number is on here. I know Jim has attended in the past as well. You guys are more than welcome. It's $110 for a couple's ticket. It's all you can eat and all you can use with adult libations as well. Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. Give me a call if you're interested.
When is the date?
The 26th, I'm sorry. Thank you for asking. It is Saturday the 26th. January, yeah. January 26th, Saturday, yes. Thank you all for your time. I appreciate it. I'll give these to the secretary. We'll go over that. I'm going to hang around if anybody has any questions. All of these guys here know me too. So I know everybody here. Dredge said I had to be paid, so I expect all the reports back to Mount Jennings to be favorable.
Thank you.
Thank you guys very much.
Committee reports, we will have the committee reports for the economic development.
All right, so our agenda was pretty light. We did receive nominations for the John F. Clare Award after some discussion and a little bit of debate about the nominations. A recommendation was made, and that individual will be presented to council at the council meeting on the 21st. And then we went into executive session to discuss sensitive information in relation to ORC 121.228. And we do have a lot of really amazing projects that we're working on currently in economic development, and we're excited to be able to start sharing some of those soon.
Thank you. Legislation, if you wish to comment on legislation, you must request to do so at this time. Those making such a request will then be called upon at the reading. Any dialogue must be conducted through me as the president of council, although your comments or questions can be addressed to the council, administration, or both. When called upon, please use the podium. Remember, clearly state your name and address into the microphone and limit your comments to 3 minutes. So, ordinance number 1, ordinance number 2, resolution number 3, resolution number 4, resolution number 5, resolution number 6, resolution number 7, resolution number 8, resolution number 9, resolution 10. Ordinance number 1, second reading.
An ordinance amending section 167.09, 167.11, 167.12, 167.141, 167.39, 167.41, 167.45, and 167.481 of the Painesville Code of 1998 relating to the classification and compensation plan and declaring an emergency.
Okay, council asked the administration to bring legislation forward to increase the council salary. This would increase the council president's annual salary from $7,000 to $8,000, and the council members' annual salary from $6,000 to $7,000. This wouldn't go into effect at January 1st, 2020. There also has been one other amendment made to this. The clerk of courts is only going to be working 40 hours a week instead of, he's going to be working 32 hours a week instead of 40. This is going to save the city almost $10,000, and we just have to do it formally, so that's in this legislation as well.
With that said, is there urgency for this to pass this evening?
No.
Is there a reason why we don't think it's like 40 hours a week?
So, as the judge is preparing to end his final term, his clerk of courts is starting to succession plan on the clerk side as well. So he's slowly stepping away and boosting other staff to take over responsibilities. So this is just a path toward that succession planning.
So somebody else will be doing his responsibilities during that 8-hour stint?
Yep.
We'll leave this on second reading. Well, ordinance number 2, first reading.
This legislation is for the issuance of $650,000 of notes. We are paying down the notes that were issued last year by $350,000, which is very significant.
Point of order, do we need to read it?
Keep going, we got 10.
Might take me a minute on this one. An ordinance providing for the issuance and sale of $650,000 notes in anticipation of the issuance of bonds to pay costs of rehabilitating and improving the Chestnut Street water storage tank, replacing a water line in Elm Street, together with all, I don't know how to say that.
Ordinances.
There too, improving the city's storm water management system by constructing and installing storm sewer lines, detention basins, and inlet basins, together with all there too, resurfacing portions of Nelson Street, East Main Street, and certain city streets to be approved by city council, together with all work incidental thereto, acquiring a dump truck with snowplow, together with necessary appurtenances thereto, relocating water mains along State Route 86 and Auburn Road, together with any necessary appurtenances thereto, improving the municipal water system by constructing and installing new water lines and other distribution system improvements, together with the necessary appurtenances thereto, and extending sanitary sewer lines and constructing a pump station to service the Shamrock Boulevard area of the city, all together with the necessary appurtenances thereto, and declaring an emergency.
Again, this is for the issuance of $650,000 of notes. All these projects happened several years ago. Back in the day, we used to finance our capital projects by issuing notes to pay for them. Now we pay cash for them, but we are still paying off this debt from past projects. Like I said, we're paying it down by $350,000, which is very significant, and we're on pace to pay this off before we're required to. This could go through readings as well.
Keep this on first reading. Resolution number 3, first reading.
Point of order, Mr. Wall, just real quick. Is there a reason, I mean, I know it can go through readings, but it takes up time on a council agenda, and I wanted to make a motion to suspend. So it is an annual piece of legislation, part of our budget process, something we've been talking about for a long time. So I'd like to make a motion to suspend it.
Second.
Okay, Mrs. Shu,
Yes.
Mr. Fitzgerald,
Yes.
Mrs. Denala,
Yes.
Mrs. Jenkins,
Yes.
Mr. Augustine,
Yes.
Mr. Fodor,
Yes.
Mr. Hack.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Move to adopt, Lori.
Mrs. Jenkins,
Yes.
Mr. Augustine.
Yes.
Mr. Fodor,
Yes.
Mrs. Shu,
Yes.
Mr. Fitzgerald,
Yes.
Mrs. Denala,
Yes.
Mr. Hack.
Yes, ordinance number 2 passed. Resolution number 3, first reading.
A resolution authorizing and directing the city manager to advertise for bids and to enter into contracts with the lowest and best bidders for furnishing materials, supplies, and services to various departments and divisions of the city of Painesville, and declaring an emergency.
Okay, this is another annual piece of legislation. It allows the city to bid out for items such as supplies and services that we might need throughout the year. We are asking that this gets approved tonight to keep our operations going.
Move to suspend.
Second.
Mrs. Shu,
Yes.
Mr. Fitzgerald,
Yes.
Mrs. Denala,
Yes.
Mrs. Jenkins,
Yes.
Mr. Augustine,
Yes.
Mr. Fodor,
Yes.
Mr. Hack.
Yes.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Mr. Augustine,
Yes.
Mr. Fodor,
Yes.
Mrs. Shu,
Yes.
Mr. Fitzgerald,
Yes.
Mrs. Denala,
Yes.
Mrs. Jenkins,
Yes.
Mr. Hack.
Yes, resolution number 3 passed. Resolution number 4, first reading.
A resolution authorizing and directing the city manager to advertise for bids and enter into a contract, including any and all ensuing change orders, with the lowest and best bidder for the automatic bar screen at the water pollution control plant and declaring an emergency.
This was approved in last year's budget, and now we're just going through all the formalities to get it out for bid.
Questions or comments? Any motion?
Move to suspend?
Second.
Lori, Katie, seconded.
Katie, second. Mrs. Shute?
Yep.
Mr. Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Mrs. Denali?
Yes.
Mrs. Jenkins?
Yes.
Mr. Augustine?
Yes.
Mr. Fodor?
Yes.
Mr. Hack?
Yes.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Mrs. Denali?
Yes.
Mrs. Jenkins?
Yes.
Mr. Augustine?
Yes.
Mr. Fodor?
Yes.
Mrs. Shute?
Yes.
Mr. Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Mr. Hack?
Yes, resolution number 4 passed. Resolution number 5, first reading.
Resolution authorizing and directing the city manager to advertise for bids and enter into a contract including any and all ensuing change orders with the lowest and best bidder for the Maplewood Basin improvements and declaring an emergency.
So this is the project we've been waiting forever for, and we finally got the approval from the railroad. So since this is the second time we brought this forward, we're asking that it be passed on the first read, so we can get trees down for the bats.
Are there any comments or questions? Any motion?
Move to suspend.
Second?
Katie, Lori.
Mr. Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Mrs. Denali?
Yes.
Mrs. Jenkins?
Yes.
Mr. Augustine?
Yes.
Mr. Fodor?
Yes.
Mrs. Shute?
Yes.
Mr. Hack?
Yes.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Mr. Fodor?
Yes.
Mrs. Shute?
Yes.
Mr. Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Mrs. Denali?
Yes.
Mrs. Jenkins?
Yes.
Mr. Augustine?
Yes.
Mr. Hack?
Yes, resolution number 4 passed. Resolution number 6, first reading.
A resolution authorizing and directing the city manager to advertise for bids and enter into a contract including any and all ensuing change orders with the lowest and best bidder for the North Park Place roadway improvements and declaring an emergency.
This is for the improvements over there in front of the county building. This is to improve the roadway to put it back in brick, as we had discussed in previous meetings. And in order to stay in line with the county, and when they want to have their opening, we need to have this passed so we can get it bid out as soon as possible.
Move to suspend?
Second.
Mrs. Shute?
Yes.
Mr. Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Mrs. Denali?
Yes.
Mrs. Jenkins?
Yes.
Mr. Augustine?
Yes.
Mr. Fodor?
Yes.
Mr. Hack?
Yes.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Mr. Augustine?
Yes.
Mr. Fodor?
Yes.
Mrs. Shute?
Yes.
Mr. Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Mrs. Denali?
Yes.
Mrs. Jenkins?
Yes.
Mr. Hack?
Yes. Resolution number 6 passed. Resolution number 7, first reading.
A resolution authorizing and directing the city manager to advertise for bids and enter into a contract including any and all ensuing change orders with the lowest and best bidder for the North Park Place streetscape and declaring an emergency.
So this is also in front of the county building, but this is for the streetscape portion, the sidewalk, the previous pavers, the trees, the lighting, all that stuff. And this has been funded by NOACA. So again, because we need to keep on track with the county, we need this passed on first read so we can keep on with their schedule.
Move to suspend.
Second.
Mr. Augustine?
Yes.
Mr. Fodor?
Yes.
Mrs. Shute?
Yes.
Mr. Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Mrs. Denali?
Yes.
Mrs. Jenkins?
Yes.
Mr. Hack?
Yes.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Mrs. Shute?
Yes.
Mr. Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Mrs. Denali?
Yes.
Mrs. Jenkins,
Yes.
Mr. Augustine,
Yes.
Mr. Fodor,
Yes.
Mr. Hack.
Yes, resolution number 7 passed. Resolution number 8, first reading.
A resolution authorizing and directing the city manager to advertise for bids and enter into a contract, including any and all ensuing change orders with the lowest and best bidder for the construction of a new parking lot and declaring an emergency.
So this is the parking lot that is directly adjacent to Victoria Place. It's behind that, and we had done the plans and bid it out, and it came in way over budget. So we budgeted more money, and we had the consultant modify the plans, and so now we are ready to move forward. And again, because this is a project that has been brought before council before, we'd like to get it out to bid as early as possible so we can get a good price.
Question. Because I'm in that building now, so this is strictly personal. No, I just, my question is more so, not knowing how the process went before, but knowing that there was a disruption to the downtown Main Street vendors and whatnot and the parking lot. Do we have a better plan in place this time for that construction process?
Yes,
Okay,
we do.
okay.
Last time, the retaining wall increased over budget. So we haven't taken a look at the retaining wall that's going to go adjacent to the apartment building.
Okay.
And so they came up with a better retaining wall that doesn't quite cost as much money. So,
Well, but are they doing it in phases so that those people aren't being displaced into the downtown parking areas? That's what I'm asking for, I guess.
unfortunately, they'll probably be displaced to across the street.
Okay, so, but that lot is there.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Just for, until it's, done and constructed.
And it can still accommodate that overflow?
It should.
And this will also take care of that dirt spot in the front?
Yes. Yes, we're putting in a storm sewer and all kinds of stuff, so it'll take care of all of that. It will be a paved, landscaped parking lot.
Perfect.
Move to suspend?
Second?
Mrs. Donato,
Yes.
Mrs. Jenkins,
Yes.
Mr. Augustine,
Yes.
Mr. Fodor,
Yes.
Mrs. Shu,
Yes.
Mr. Fitzgerald,
Yes.
Mr. Hack.
Yes.
Move to adopt?
Second.
Mrs. Shu,
Yes.
Mr. Fitzgerald,
Yes.
Mrs. Donato,
Yes.
Mrs. Jenkins,
Yes.
Mr. Augustine,
Yes.
Mr. Fodor,
Yes.
Mr. Hack.
Yes, resolution number 8 passed. Resolution number 9, first reading.
A resolution authorizing and directing the city manager to advertise for bids and enter into a contract including any and all ensuing change orders with the lowest and best bidder for the Menor Avenue and Jackson Street storm sewer improvements and declaring an emergency.
So this was part of the 5-year capital plan that was identified as part of the 2008 study for Tyler Creek. And the size of the pipes needed to be increased in order to accommodate the flow of the storms. So in order to get this completed before the paving project on Jackson Street, we are also asking that this be suspended and passed on first reading.
I do have just one question. Are we digging up Menor Avenue?
No, we will not have to dig up Menor Avenue. We will be adding some basins to Menor Avenue to accommodate the flow. So we'll be digging up maybe just the sides, but we're not digging up the roadway. Unfortunately, those pipes were already outside, so we didn't have to do that.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Can I get a motion?
Move to suspend?
Second?
Mr. Fitzgerald,
Yes.
Mrs. Donato,
Yes.
Mrs. Jenkins,
Yes.
Mr. Augustine,
Yes.
Mr. Fodor,
Yes.
Mrs. Shu,
Yes.
Mr. Hack.
Yes.
Move to
adopt.
Second?
Mrs. Donato,
Yes.
Mrs. Jenkins,
Yes.
Mr. Augustine,
Yes.
Mr. Fodor,
Yes.
Mrs. Shu,
Yes.
Mr. Fitzgerald,
Yes.
Mr. Hack.
Yes, resolution number 9 passed. Resolution number 10, first reading.
A resolution authorizing and directing the city manager to advertise for bids and enter into a contract, including any and all ensuing change orders with the lowest and best bidder for the West Jackson Street sanitary sewer lining and declaring an emergency.
So before we pave the road, we televise the storm and sanitary sewers. Upon that television, we found that there was quite a bit of this sanitary sewer that was cracked. So we need to do this project before the sewer company comes in, because we're afraid the vibration might cause some issues. So for that reason, we do need this passed on first reading.
What about the residents' laterals tying into the main? Yours is cracked. Is there any way to tell if those are cracked too?
I didn't see any evidence of issues with the actual laterals coming in where they make the connection of the pipe. Most of the problem is we have a crack on top and we have a crack on the side. So it's, if we get any sort of vibration, it could collapse it down in. So the lining will reinforce that and make it so that it's a stronger pipe.
I have a question, and I don't know if we've ever, because we talked about lining for years. What, if we line that pipe and those, later on that pipe degrades and falls apart, that lining is sufficient enough on its own to sustain impact?
Yes, it is, because it's a resin liner, so it's just as sturdy and structural integrity of the clay pipe.
Okay.
I mean, eventually they will, break down, but we're talking 100,
Okay.
200 years, just like the clay pipes right here, so.
Thank you.
And the laterals will be cut in, so people aren't going to.
Yeah.
Shutting everyone off.
Just let him say that. Just say.
No sewer for you.
Move to suspend.
Second.
Mrs. Shu?
Yes.
Mr. Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Mrs. Denalo?
Yes.
Mrs. Jenkins?
Yes.
Mr. Augustine?
Yes.
Mr. Fodor?
Yes.
Mr. Hack?
Yes.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Mrs. Denalo?
Yes.
Mrs. Jenkins?
Yes.
Mr. Augustine?
Yes.
Mr. Fodor?
Yes.
Mrs. Shu?
Yes.
Mr. Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Mr. Hack?
Yes, resolution number 10 passed. Unfinished business, we have none. New business coded amendment addressing ends. White.
Good evening. On November 8th, our planning commission conducted the annual review for the Steel Mansion located at 348 Menor Avenue as a requirement of their conditional use permit. I would like to just give a brief background on this matter. The Steel Mansion was granted their conditional use permit for the operation of an inn within the R2 multifamily residential district in July of 2012. The zoning language to allow for an inn within this district was created specifically for the Steel Mansion to allow for the renovation and reconstruction of that building. The city's current planning and zoning code has a section 1143.07 that provides additional requirements for conditional use permits. This is a matter under new business for City Council. As stated, Mr. Shamakian appeared before the commission in November for the annual review. He explained that the Steel Mansion Suites LLC has finished their third year of operations and they are looking to restructure their long-term financing. Mr. Shamakian stated that the annual review is seen as a negative impact for long-term financing options. It is viewed as a one-year license for operation. He requested the commission look at removing this requirement as part of his permit for the operation of the inn. The Planning Commission requested that City Council examine Chapter 1143.07G4 specifically to determine whether or not the requirements that are imposed on inns for, number one, an annual review of the conditional use permit conditions, and number two, the requirement that the certificate of compliance be renewed on an annual basis, that it should be changed or eliminated. In order to move forward with this matter, I have two options. Number one would be to create legislation addressing the matter and bring it forward at the first meeting in February to City Council, or number 2, include modified language into our Unified Development Code. So I would request a formal motion as far as the direction to go with this from council.
Comments or questions?
So,
How do you feel?
so what's the difference? I mean, what is the, if you have two ways to go, one being for legislation, would we still not have to look at the changing in the design code or not? Or-
Yeah, you will have to do both.
Okay.
Our Unified Development Code will be seen for the first time this Thursday in front of our planning commission. So we can address the language in that new code that may take some time before it comes before city council for adoption because of the number of changes that are being made in our whole planning and zoning code. The other option is to just draft legislation right now to address it so that it's done and over with, and then we'll just make sure that it gets incorporated into the new development code.
And the new development code would be finished before their annual review would be up next year, correct? I mean,
Yes, it is very hopeful that
and,
yes.
and what's the downside
For,
for making, I mean, I can see the upside for the inn and so on and so forth, but is there a downside to the city for making this change? Are there other entities that could come and say, hey, now we can do this? There's a
well,
change
it's
here.
specific for just inns, and
Okay.
currently we just have the one that
Okay.
falls within that conditional use permit process. So we have administratively discussed how to approach it and doing like a sliding scale, like after so many years of proving that you're operating within those requirements, that maybe it's not an annual review. It would be every 5 years, just to make sure. But by law, they're required to have inspections done from the fire marshal every year. They go in and do inspections to make sure that they're up to code for fire and health and safety and things of that nature, so.
And we originally brought all of those restrictions on there because of the residential and the rest of the complaints that were surrounding this. So we would, okay, so it wasn't something that we did because we've done it, that we wanted to do it that way in the past. We constructed it this way so that the opposition felt that we were doing our due diligence.
Correct.
So are we not, do we have to go back to the opposition and say, here's what we're changing, or is it something that we can just change, or will it just be the 3 readings and that's it?
That's entirely
I
up
would-
to council.
I would share that it wasn't just a matter of there was some opposition. I would share that I think we as a council wanted to make, and I think the planning commission wanted to make sure that the operation of the inn was where we needed it to be so that it wasn't disruptive to the community at large around it, since it's in a residential area. So I would ask, Lynn, if you didn't, and we just had it done through the unified code, then the unified code sounds like it would be in opposition to the ordinance. So don't we need to have both happen in the long run?
Well, our Unified Development Code that we're creating will replace our current planning and zoning code. So whatever changes that we do in there as we're working on it and we adopt it and it comes to you, you will adopt that as the new.
As legislation.
Right, as a new code that will be in our codified ordinances.
So it has to happen consecutively, but it would go quicker if you brought it to us as legislation.
Correct.
Is what you're telling us.
Correct.
And do you have proposed language for that right now?
We have some, we haven't completed it yet, but we can have it by the,
By the
February.
next council meeting?
In February.
Well, so we were paying the first council in February,
February.
not the next council meeting.
Okay.
So based on the information that you gave as far as the kind of graduated approval process, that's the direction that the administration's going with this type of conditional use, or?
That was something that we were contemplating and looking at doing.
So would getting some sort of direction from council as far as whatever that change does occur, what you would like to see it look like, would that be helpful tonight, or?
So the legislation we were going to bring back, if council wants to see legislation, is one based on recommendations of the planning commission, which was eliminate, but maybe have a step-down scale, where the first couple of years they have to prove themselves, and then they don't have to come back on an annual basis. But there are still other codes that would allow us to come back on that company if
Yeah,
it
it's
chose
still
to
a place
go.
to check it.
Exactly. And whether we have this ordinance or not, as Lynn was saying, they still have to meet the fire code, they still have to meet the health inspections. So on an annual basis, they're still being inspected by other entities. But we'd still want to be making sure that they're good neighbors if any in that comes in, because we may not get such a wonderful couple who comes in and does such a wonderful job. But at the same time, giving that business an opportunity to refinance for long-term financing, where the bank sees the year-to-year as a hindrance because they may not have a certificate to occupy or a certificate of compliance in a year-to-year basis.
And I appreciate knowing that it is creating some financial challenges as far as financing and that sort of stuff goes for the owners. One of the things I was going to ask is that it should change hands, not that that particular entity will, but should change hands but retain its name, then it would not change the procedure. So if new owners came and kept the name of the company, would they then also be exempt? Yeah, or would they revert back?
We would make it so that it would revert back to like a beginning. We would start over. This particular conditional use permit, one of the conditions was that the ownership had to remain substantially the same in order for it to continue. So if there were any major change in partnership or ownership for this particular conditional use permit, they would have to start basically from scratch and go through. So then they would have to, whatever that new legislation is that we create as far as a step down, they would have to go through that process like a brand new one.
I'm in favor of seeing the new legislation and
I would agree.
I'm in favor of
Yeah,
legislation.
and I definitely like the step down idea, you know, where in the first 2-3 years, maybe there's a little bit more interaction, and then after that, they're able to kind of have a lot more freedom.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Administrative report, law director. Manager.
Nothing further.
Clerk of council.
The next regular council meeting will be held on Tuesday, January 22nd at 7:30, due to being closed on Monday, January 21st for Martin Luther King Jr. Day. The Downtown Painesville organization is hosting a Founder's Day breakfast this Saturday, January 12th, $25 per person. The Painesville Recreation Department is hosting its 15th annual chili cook-off on January 26th from 1 to 3:30 p.m. at the Painesville United Methodist Church. It's $10 to register, which you can do through the Recreation Department.
Thank you. We have closing comments. Tom?
I think I'd just like to thank the city employees, put up all the beautiful Christmas decorations, and I know they're starting to take them down right now, but it was just, the decorations were beautiful, and it was nice to see the city lit up like that, and it was a nice reflection on our town, so thank you. That's all. Katie?
Thank you.
Lori? Christine?
Happy New Year, everybody. And that's it.
You know, with our effort for new branding, I was wondering if there would be a possibility maybe this year that, you know, because our police, our fire, and quite a few of our other departments have shirts, you know, going again with maybe council having some type of allotment of $75 or $80 to purchase shirts, sweaters, things of that nature.
Okay.
For council.
Yes.
Yeah, we already set some money aside and we picked 5 options that we'll be finalizing and getting to council to choose from.
Okay. Works for me. Sounds good. That's all I got.
Christine?
All right, did it. Happy New Year.
Oh, I'm sorry, Nick.
Also, Happy New Year, and then I just want wanted to give everybody a heads up. Tomorrow, the Downtown Painesville organization is having a merchant meeting at the Gage House at 8 a.m. Kathleen Sullivan, our communications coordinator, will be presenting the City of Painesville rebranding information. So if anybody wants to catch the whole presentation, you can see it tomorrow morning at the Gage House.
I just want to let everybody know about this fundraiser for the reverse raffle, Saturday, January 26th in Wamapa. My wife is donating a quilt, she has several $100 into it. My wife's won many awards with the quilt, so it'll be quite a nice find if you guys get a chance to go to it. It's a $5 raffle. And this motion, or at this moment, can I get a motion to
I want to move to go into executive session in accordance with section 6.3 of Painesville City Charter to discuss pending or potential litigation involving.
Second. Roll call.
Mrs. Donato?
Yes.
Mrs. Jenkins?
Yes.
Mr. Augustine?
Yes.
Mr. Coder?
Yes.
Mrs. Shu?
Yes.
Mr. Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Mr. Hack?
Yes. Let's move over to the other courtroom. Get this started.